Welcome to Searcy, an alternative angle to the Minneapolis Riots. As civil unrest and chaos grips the United States, we are yet again reminded of the problems that arise from multiracial libertarian societies. The Black Lives Matter movement have always been explicit with advocating what they view as being in their best racial interests. Yet the problems that they keep encountering and their foundations keep being ignored. The problem is not racism or the police. The problem is diversity and proximity. At a conscious or unconscious level, we all know this, yet we dismiss any well-meaning solutions as ignorant or racist. The contemporary definition applied to racism only emerges from encountering people of different races and having unpleasant interactions and noticing patterns of behavior, which is a natural and tribal instinct. No matter how liberal or illiberal you are, everyone has this instinct, some just ignore it more than others. The movement should take from the philosophy of Malcolm X and advocate black nationalism and separatism, instead of demanding more civil rights from white society, akin to the route Martin Luther King took, and look where that has led. The answer ultimately lies in racial separation, which could be achieved voluntarily through separatist activism. Churches in America are basically already black only and white only. The police can and often abuse their power, as we have seen, but if black police officers hold power over black citizens in black states, my guess is there won't be as many George Floyd cases in the future. Which, by the way, that is such a white-sounding name. George Floyd? Is he of English descent? Oh, he's black. What will secession bring to the United States, assuming this is practical and gets enough mainstream attention, discussion of which may still be a while away? Some activists advocate for forming black-only communities. Why not black-only cities or states? We should let them have black states with black police officers, a black education system, and all the black spaces they want. They will be proud of their nation, and so will white Americans after separation, because it will be theirs, with their own history and traditions, and under their control. There is more commonality between members of black racial movements and white racial movements than one might think. I believe in self-determination of all people. If them forming states for black Americans only, or repatriation to Africa is what they want, you hear different ideas from them, then that option is something that should be explored. Ultimately, secession should only be an option in the United States since they have the space for it. European demographics have always shown that black people were an insignificant minority which don't deserve to be there or possess land there. In other white countries, it is the same situation. History will ultimately vindicate me on this, despite how controversial a view it is. Come to think of it, why is it controversial if I say it, yet I'm just agreeing with what they propose? The media may claim they don't think that black-only events are racist, since it's not segregationist and reflecting any existing power structures, but they should also support white-only events existing. If they don't like white people, which most of these people don't, they should want to separate themselves from us. Don't subvert our events, make your own, and be separate from our evil racism, but do it in your own spaces. It's curious how the media also obfuscate the truth behind interracial violent crime incidents. I don't think the United States is sustainable in its current form. Emancipation without repatriation. Repatriation was proposed as a Reconstruction-era plan, but wasn't followed through with. Was a mistake. Not only because of where it has led race relations in America, but also because of what blacks experienced after the Civil War. Perhaps they should organize new nations with these borders, but on racial lines. We also need to highlight the media's role in portraying these riots as peaceful protests instead of violent and criminal. What goal does this achieve? It's just another excuse for them to burn down their towns and steal. We will likely witness the failure of democracy and anti-authoritarianism in the handling of the situation. The army and other similar organizations may be called in, but their effectiveness is limited against an armed, angry, and innumerous populace. If the system isn't organized on cooperative, organized lines like under corporatism, a chaotic and violent end is inevitable for an unrestricted multiracial society. White allies of Black Lives Matter should not cling onto the coattails of their movement. If they want liberation, they need to achieve it on their own. Black people cannot advocate for decolonization and get white people to help them too. It just doesn't make sense. This is their battle, not ours. It is also not in the interests of white people to help them accelerate our demise. They think in terms of race. Why don't we? Looting in honor of a deceased black man with a criminal record and a history in the porn industry is not a revolutionary event. This is hyperconsumption, capitalism on steroids. Instead of looting, they should be targeting that energy and violence in other, more effective directions to wake their enemies up. Make things exciting instead of ransacking your communities. It's the same thing in a different year and little has been achieved. Race relations are even worse. My guess is that these riots will only accelerate the collapse of the American empire and not achieve many of the goals that the movement has. Yet they have chosen the looting route. So what good will that do to black people? Hardly any. More people will lose their businesses and jobs to the riots. They will fall victim to poverty. They might resort to crime to get by, and the cycle will repeat itself. Who knows how many people this will affect? You could say this is helping white liberals realize the importance of self-defense, but the threat to their safety is too out of reach at the moment. They want white people scared to the point where they no longer call the police on black people, ultimately removing what rights they currently have. In the aftermath of such an impactful pandemic, is a resource scarcity and even more unemployment really what they need right now? Do not disregard this article as ignorance or blind racism. Have a think to yourself about what other alternative there is. This is what they advocate for. Time will tell how bad things will get. Hey, thanks for reading this article. Watch this space as there will be plenty more to come.